It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine?
All right, how you all doing? Some of you might be looking at the length of this podcast, and you might feel like this. Don't worry, I'm going to explain it all real quick and get on with the podcast. I'm going to have all kind of ways that you're not going to have to surf through this whole thing. It's just, I've been talking to a guy in the media who's a friend of mine, and he's been putting some stuff in my head about, I need to think about some things on how I create this product. And then talking to him, I realized I had changed some of my format from the first season to second season to try to create shorter content so people didn't feel overwhelmed by a large amount of content. But I was rushing. I didn't feel comfortable. So I was also talking to the tech guy here, who's a young tech guy. He says, you got to try this format. So I'm going to try this elongated format, but I got a whole host of ways to not create a monster. So I got some pro tips. I'm going to add tons of chapters, really detailed chapters. You can also, I've learned, and somebody was telling me, you can go to 1.25 speed, 1.5 speed, but also because the way the process happens, I ship it out to somebody, they do their thing, they got to make sure it's good, I got to upload it. It just becomes a long thing, and I can't get out all the coverage I want to get. One guy was saying, he's like, hey, this is the offensive line channel. I'm like, well, I'm happy about that, but that's not what I want. It just became a logistical nightmare to get enough quantity out to cover multiple positions. And because the offensive line was the most critical, and it is the base, the floor for all of our success or failures, I keep going back to it. It's because of this logistical thing. So I'm going to dice this thing up as well. If you don't want to go through all the chapters, or you don't want to watch it at fast speed or watch it at the normal speed, I'm going to dice it up in 1 minute shorts and then tight portions of the content and put it out like my old style of 10 to 17 minutes. It's just easy for me to do all this at once. I could do some fun stuff that I haven't been doing before. And then put it all out over a day or two or three. And then I can get all the stuff out that I want and serve some people who want short stuff, some people who want long stuff, some people want me to cover other topics. Entiendo? Savvy? Comprendez-vous? Okay, so let me get into it. Today's menu is going to be Tua protection, O-line, and how to create better protection. I'm going to offer clear ways to improve this beyond the obvious, some that I think that McDaniel is definitely going to do. And then I'm going to go blockers, of course, because I love my offensive lines, the offensive line channel, but I'm going to go beyond that. And then I'm going to talk about the hiring of offensive line coach Butch Barry, which happened late last night. Talk about ancillary blockers. Your tight ends and running backs are almost as key as your offensive linemen, especially when you like to have extra blockers being used as much as we do. I hope we move past that this season. So I'm going to get into that, the keys on that. Touch on the draft because it's going to tie into some other stuff. I'm going to talk about Fangio and Flo. And then I'm going to talk about Tindall and easy to wrap it up. Okay? So before we get into that, I want to say thank you for stopping by. I want to give a shout out to you and my sponsors, Ace Per Head, because without you, without them, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. I'm going to start with Tua because clearly the kid was playing really well and he got hurt in ways that are not good. That head is serious. It took him a month to really get out of the protocols. And Joe Shad put this up to $23.2 million instead of $29.5 million is the fifth-year option number now for Tua because he has no Pro Bowls. If you're the Dolphins, would you pick it up? No! And this ain't Tua hate. People are like, you don't like Tua. No. This is the best option for Tua, the kid. Best option for the Tua, the player. This is the best option for the fans who love him. This is the best option for the team. This is even the best option for the fans who don't like him or don't believe in him. And I'll explain why.
For one chance, just one chance, and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Freedom allows Tua to have, like William Wallace said, one chance to get your freedom. This kid, I'm sure, wants to play with Miami, but more than that, he wants to play football and make the most amount of money. Tying him into a fifth-year option is not the best thing for him. This will give him a year to prove he can stay healthy, prove that he can play. I believe the kid can. I believe the framework has constrained him. In some ways, it's helped him, but the protection levels is the main constraint. So if he can stay healthy and he can play well, and that really just revolves around run game and protection, this kid will create the opportunity for himself here in Miami or beyond. And I want the best quarterback in Miami, but I have to be honest. I want the best thing for the kid. I want the best thing for my team. And to not tie into him for long term or sign that fifth-year option is really the best thing for the Dolphins as well. He gets to prove it. We get to see it. And the kid can choose his future, because if we have to put the transition tag on him, it will cost us more money. It will make him more money. If we have to put the franchise on him, it will make him more money and cost us more money and probably push us to the longer-term contract. Now, there's some trepidation there as well, but teams will look at this kid through the course of the season. He stays healthy. He plays well. He will be a desired object for other teams, and this is good for Tua, and this allows us the flexibility to see what the possibilities are. So, as I said this last year, I said this the year before, I said it going to 2021 when I talked about his platform, his mechanics, his injury. He needs a run game and better protection. And I'm going to get into all these little elements to show you, but I want to set it up with the philosophy of McDaniel the past philosophy going into this season. Because that's really where you got to build it off. You go into creating an offense or a defense by a philosophy, and then you begin the particulars. So take a look at this graphic. Miami Dolphins attempted air yards 5th, 9.0. So we were top 5 in attempted depth. The farther you throw the football, the harder it is to protect and the harder it is to complete. It's easy to throw short passes, but the farther it goes, the more difficult it becomes. Now, caught air yards, we were first, 8.1. When you pull this all together, and some of these caught air yards are slightly inflated because Waddle and Hill is so fast that it adds a little extra sauce on the 8.1. If you had slower receivers, this would be a much more amazing number. Because they're so fast, they can cover so much ground. You know, it might put them in top 5 in actuality because of their talents. But still, top 5 in both attempted and completed air yards. Attempted air yards I didn't put in there, but that's high as well. Really high. I forgot what it was, like 12 or something. It was crazy. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So, you can look at this next graphic here. We were top 6 worst in pressures allowed. 25%. Now, we had 2.4 seconds before the throw of the football or the pocket collapses. That's not good. We were tied with the New York Giants, who have a bad offensive line. And so we were top 2 of the top 6 worst teams in protection and time to get the ball out. Again, some of that's inflated because Waddle and Hill can do some stuff. But this is not a good recipe when you add to it the depth of the attempts and the completions. So we were also number 1 of these top 6 worst teams in pass attempts. So it was a dangerous environment. It was a fast-moving environment that was pressing vertical in high numbers with a quarterback that got his melon rocked and then also had a history of injuries. The philosophy was failed in some regard. In some regard, it was good because he was completing these passes. And there are many ways to mitigate this. And it's going to be a great test to see McDaniel from year 1 to year 2 and how, from a philosophical standpoint, and we can add the rest in, makes alterations. Talent will help. Play calls will help. Discipline will help. But the philosophy is the beginning, bare bones. Would you put the flesh on? So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, I love my comments. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because I can spend, 6-7 hours and get 4 or 5 podcasts out, and then I can get to my comments. And I could do a better job in research because sending it out, waiting, and, answering, it was so tiring for an old dog, okay? So here's Christopher Jones. I get so many great comments. I'm going to start adding more comments. That's the thing I've always wanted to do, too, because there's so much wisdom, not just from the guys that play ball or coaches that sometimes show up over here or the big-time media guys, to grace the channel, but just from regular Joes who have awesome observations and bring great information. This comment from Christopher Jones, Eagles gave up 44 sacks. They have 3 O-line players selected to the Pro Bowl. Dolphins gave up 35 sacks. Not saying this equates to a better O-line, but it's bizarre that our QBs are getting the ball out quicker than Hurts. Now, there's multiple parts here, but this sent me on a journey that allowed me to really create more of my own analytics. I had started doing it in the middle of the season and just watching the tape and I found some shortcuts that will help me going forward. Now, first, Hurts has got some great skill sets, but quick release isn't one of them. 2, his ability to light that ball up. Somebody was telling me they do the time of a release and it's quicker than Marino's. That's a huge, huge asset, guys. I can't tell you. I've been saying it for years. I don't think there's too many other people who are saying, hey, this is a major asset. It's huge. So he can get the ball out quicker. He's got quicker receivers. The combination of that creates a lot of help to keep the sacks off. Tua takes a lot of hits, last year more than this year, getting that ball off and saving the sack. And they look like bad passes, but he's trying to save himself and the drive. But when you dig into it deeper, they had 9 more sacks. Some of that is from Hurts, who likes to run. And sometimes when you scramble, you get sacked behind the line of scrimmage. Don't got the numbers on that. That's anecdotal. He doesn't have the quick release. But look at this. I wrote this back. Very smart, too, if I do say so myself.
He who keep running thy lippeth will get their lippeth split with one of these.
They used... the Eagles, 163 extra blockers on 717 pass plays. That means tight ends and fullbacks and running backs. Where the Dolphins used 262 extra blockers on 727 pass plays. So they achieved their protection, the Dolphins, with 60% more of blockers, which constricts the route combinations and the ability to send receivers into routes. So you're putting 2 and 3 guys into routes against 6, defenders and 7 defenders. This makes it harder to complete passes. In some ways, it's amazing what McDaniel and Tua and Hill and Waddle were able to do. But there was a sacrifice for this. And I'm going to tie this into the ancillary blockers along with the mainline blockers and show you how some tweaks really can light up this offense, bolster this defense, and get this team where we want it to go. Because we all been singing this song for as long as we've been Dolphins, except for the super golden age guys. Let's look at this graphic. Remember, we're dealing on philosophy. We got high vertical with heavy pressure. We're bringing loads of extra blockers, which constricts the passing routes, the number of receivers in routes. And we got to get the ball out quick. And we got a quarterback who's got health issues and isn't really the biggest guy in the universe. So our RPO, we were 3rd in most RPO passes. Play fake, and then, we don't run with it. Some teams will RPO. The RPO is pass, but there's also the run option to the edge. You'll see the guys do it. The combination of the two can actually cause defenses to hesitate if they fear the quarterback, maybe once or twice in a game, they hit the edge. Just look at Allen or Lawrence or whatever. So we fake it inside and let it go. And Tua is a master. He goes through his progressions unbelievably. But you'll see we had third, I guess it was, I forgot what the number, I should have put it down here. Our passing yards, I think, was third, and it from actually out of the RPO. But our runs, our letting the running back get the ball, was 20th. We had 15 on the season. Look at Philly. They were second at 49. Look at Atlanta, who is third in the amount of RPOs. They were fourth at 41. So from a philosophical standpoint, when you're a defense, you're like, these guys ain't running the football on RPOs. And if they do, what's going to come of it? So just drop in the coverage. And I'm going to go back into the play action here now, and it's going to crystallize into something very critical. And if you go back and watch film, you'll see it. I've been talking about it all year. Now, play action. So we were very heavy in the run action passes. We were second in play action passes, 199. We had actually ended up have the most yards out of play action is 1,711. So we're heavy in the run action through our passes, but we don't run the football out of the RPO, and we have no effective run game. And when that happens, all week long, the defense is going over tendencies, the DC is going over tendencies, and it's like, just don't worry about it. You could see that through most of the season, the linebackers, before the action even happens, they're dropping. And that means they increase the depth, which makes it hard to get over the middle. They started shying away as the season went because they probably thought McDaniel's a run guy. We got to watch the run. But when they saw he wasn't running the football, they were able to get that depth, and they weren't even biting at all. But when you saw the Browns game, the Bills game, and some games where we started getting some run action going, you see those linebackers creep up, and you were getting those inside posts. The inside was open up, and the edges were opening up. And so this was a heavy constraint on the offense, on McDaniel's desires, and on Tua's ability to stay healthy and to complete the pass. Because when you got that depth and you're not buying on the run, now you got to wait a little bit longer to get that pass off, and then the pressure gets to you. And pressure is key. So again, look at the pressure here. 6 most pressure, and you can see it's not just the offensive lineman. It's a whole host of things. And simply adding some effective run game will allow the passing lanes to open. It will cause the defense to have hesitation, and it will keep the critical aspect of initiative on the Miami Dolphins offense. And look what they were able to do. Just imagine if they had pass balance, how devastating this offense and Tua could be. So I want to get to the ancillary blockers. We could talk about the offensive line, and I love to do that. But let's talk about these ancillary blockers. Now, tight ends, fullbacks, and running backs, they come to support based on how poor the protection is, if you're running play action, whatever. So Smythe is our number one tight end, okay? Gesicki was in there all the time, and we know he can't really block. He's not really a tight end. So Smythe's going to be with us, and he's our number one guy. He was tied for first in the league with 10 pressures. So he let up the most pressures aside from one other guy in the entire league at the tight end position, and we brought tons of ancillary blockers. Now, he had 99 reps at pass blocking, and he's not good at it. He had a pass block rate of 59. Okay? Now, Alec Ingold, he had a ton of pass blocks, 67. Pass block grade, which was pretty good. He had 41, but he wasn't so good at the run blocking grade. And so there's a yin and yang with Ingold. And then Hunter Long, he had a run blocking grade of 62 and 58 pass PFF grade, and a 58 pass block grade for 21. None of these grades, except for Ingold's pass block grade, is good. We know Gesicki wasn't good. O'Connor wasn't good. So we had some of the worst blocking all around, except for Ingold in the pass protection. Now look at our running backs. Jeff Wilson. He had a 24.6 pass blocking grade. Ahmed, big missed blocks in the playoff game, 27. Now Raheem Mostert, he had 32 pass block assignments, which is pretty high for a running back. Not some of the top ones, but, when it's all combination, and considering the amount he only had 338 reps, 54. We had some of the worst pass blocking. We could talk about the offensive line, but these ancillary blockers, aside from Ingold, is a disaster. And it's not all them so much. Again, it's the predictability. It's the philosophy that allows defenses to key in on what Miami's doing before they even call the play. And that gives a huge edge. Now, I'm going to touch on a little thing here. There was this by the Dolphins Wire. You can see it here. Senior Bowl Draft Wire has put out their newest mock draft. The Dolphins at number 51 are projected to target Oregon State tight end Luke Musgrave. In 20 games over 4 years, Musgrave recorded 47 receptions, 663 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Pretty good. But this looks really like a Chris Grier Dolphins pick, but it also looks a lot like Hunt. He's shown all-around combination of size, athleticism, and that everyone's looking for a tight end. The only worry is how little we got to see of it. Musgrave really didn't blossom into the feature role until last season. Then it got cut short only 2 games due to an undisclosed injury. His run blocking grade, 54.3. No, I'm going to get into the tight ends. There's some really good tight ends for us out there, and he ain't one of them unless somehow he develops. It's going to give us more of the same. It's going to give us Hunt along 2.0 most likely. We don't need that. I pray this isn't the deal. We need to upgrade this tight end position. If we had, say, Smythe, who could be a back-end blocker, and have a guy who could inline block as a threat to go to chip and go, and the threat of the chip and go, as well catching, it would alter things dramatically. There is a couple of really good tight ends in this draft, and I'm going to get that in a minute. Gotta drink something first. So, this is going to be my portion as usual.
I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
Take a look at this graphic here. Barry Jackson. Dolphins still invested in Liam at left guard and Austin at right guard, amid injuries limiting both this season. Grier, they're both part of the plan, and we will give them the opportunity to grow and compete.
Way to spend my last days sitting between 2 dummies sucking on a Tootsie Roll pop.
Let's take a look at the clip of Chris Grier, what he actually had to say, and break it down. Because there are clear realities that you have to, and me, have to accept. It's not the end of the world, but let's be real.
Starting jobs next year, or if you need to address those 2 positions elsewhere this offseason.
Every position will always keep, but they're 2 young players again. This would be the first offense they will be in 2 years in a row. And Liam showed some really good signs of playing well for stretches after adjusting, to the system and being asked to do stuff he had never done before. And we actually joked before one of our games when he got hurt. A coach, a GM on another team came over and was like, "Man, he's losing Eichenberg hurt." And he said he's been playing really well for you. So it's encouraging to hear that from others, to see the work that Mike and Frank and Matt and the offensive staff put in with him, and his hard work as well. And then Austin was playing really good. He was the one we were talking about all preseason, and then he gets hurt week 1 on kind of a fluke thing, and then comes back and same injury, which is 1 in a million things. So Again, he's still young, a lot of upside. Needs to keep developing to continue, but no, they're both part of the plan, and we'll give him opportunities to grow and compete.
We heard that Liam was very good through stretches. He'd never done certain things before. Zone stretch? We ran zone stretch last year. Not high volume, but he's run it, and I'm sure he had to run it in his career. I mean, sure, there's different tweaks. And then there was a story about a GM coming up to him. I ain't saying the guy's lying, but this GM must be high as a kite if he's not.
To keep operating
the GM of another team came over, and he's like, he's playing really well for you.
Insanity, doing the same thing.
When was this?
Really
this is not reality. I've gone over it 100 times here, and here. This is not reality. And notice, he also said the good work that Frank, Matt, and Mike did. And then he talked about Austin. He was a guy we were really excited for. And then he got an injury that is a 1 in a million. Expect Jackson to start at right tackle. Expect Eichenberg to start at left guard. Now, we got to hope the new offensive line coach is who I'm going to get into now, of Butch Barry last night to be the new offensive line coach. Now, Barry was with McDaniel in 2021 with the 49ers. He's used to the wide zone scheme, and that's a good thing. But was Applebaum not? And if so, why did we hire him? I don't know. I didn't know what his scheme, his tendency was, but I thought it was wide zone too. So he was an assistant offensive line coach in 2021. And in 2021, San Francisco averaged 127.4 rushing yards and allowed only 33 sacks. That's the good portion. Now, on the negative portion, he was the offensive line coach last year with the Broncos, and the Broncos were called for 18 holding penalties and 23 false starts. And the Dolphins, in contrast, had 11 holding penalties and 18 false starts. Now, the Broncos average 113 rush yards per game and 4.4 per carry, and compared to the Dolphins at 99.2 and 4.3. Barry's resume includes senior analyst with Green Bay, assistant line coach with Tampa from 2015-2018, and line coach in Central Michigan. So, they had a little bit better offensive line than we did last year, and they weren't good. They were undisciplined. And they're about the same. I mean, 13 more yards. But look at the backs they had over there. And San Fran, you could hold that up. Be like, oh, that's exciting. Well, you got Trent Williams and all that offensive line in 2021. It's easy to be a genius with great talent. So this, to me, looks, at best, a lateral move. And I got to dig into it a little bit more. It's a little bit weird because Applebaum, supposedly, there was problems on the offensive line. It was his fault. There was problems in blocking, and it was his fault. But if we look here, with better talent, better backs, I mean, Hackett signed him. So I'm a little concerned here. This does not feel like a great move like Munchak or something like that. It seems, I hope I'm wrong, we got to see. But I am in a holding pattern, and I think at best it's a lateral move, and that's something we need to talk about a little bit later. Now, part of the reality to that is the Broncos had injuries, but so did we. So there's a lot of parallels, and that's why I'm not sure if I feel fantabulous about it, but we'll see. So let's dial in to what I like to talk about, and I know I get a little bit of hate from some people because I fixate on it, but look at Liam Eichenberg here in this graphic. 42 run blocking grade. He was terrible in gap and zone. No bueno in the run game. And I've already spoke about how critical the run game is, considering you run a lot of run action. Then the pass blocking. Greg Little, 30. Pressures 35, Eichenberg 39, 27 pressures, Shell 51.7, 40 pressures, and Austin Jackson in the limited 58 snaps, 54.6 pass blocking grade, and 6 pressures.
As I get home, the first thing I'm going to do is punch your mama in the mouth.
And this really adds, questions to Applebaum moving on, and questions whether Butch Barry is going to be that big of a difference. These guys have to take huge steps forward. And remember what Eichenberg said, what Greer said about Eichenberg and the GM. Does this anything here look like you're playing really great? So here we go, going into the draft. Tua's got to be protected, or whoever the quarterback. We like to run a lot of play action, a lot of run action. We like to go vertical. We're going to have to run the football and create better protection. It's pretty clear right now. Jackson is starting. Eichenberg is starting. Tehran's going to be there. I hope he's going to be healthy. Connor will be center, and Hunt will be the right guard, with Jones in the background, but we're running wide zone, which just doesn't suit him. So we're going to have to get some backups. But I highly doubt we use that second and third on an offensive lineman. But if you saw my other podcast, where I was a little bit of a bad guy, Philly and KC, who were in the Super Bowl, found stars in the 6th and 7th and 5th rounds in the offensive line. You look at Patriots, they did the same thing. It's so key if you can find a high-quality lineman late in the draft. We got to hope with that 6th or 7th. Again, I'm going to put it on. I know. Zach Tom was a big miss for us, but that's okay. There's going to be another Zach, not exactly, but there will be a guy somewhere around there. You could trade back with that second, get some thirds maybe, or a fourth, and find that sixth guy, that quality sixth guy that could play your zone stretch and maybe play multiple positions. I got to go through who's actually there, but we're not going to use that second and third on any offensive lineman. There's no way I see that happening.
I mean, last week my wife, she signed me up for a bridge club. I jump off next Tuesday.
But running back, our protection. Ahmed, I love the kid, but he can't pass block. He's too small, or he doesn't have the right technique. And it's going to be expensive to get a guy in there. Mostert, even you get him in, I like him, but you're still going to need that mainstay guy that can protect and break tackles. Don't know if they're going to use a second and third on a running back. Maybe the 6th or 7th. They like, but Greer, whatever you say about him, he can find some backs. Yeah, it's been a little while, but maybe the 2nd and 3rd. But that 6th and 7th, I still think you could find maybe somebody. But tight end, safety, corner, O-line, I don't see that either. So tight end, safety, and corner looks like the piece. But I like Kohu. And I like X. Unless there's a steal there, I'm not sure about the corner. The safety, though, you can find good value in the 2nd and 3rd. And there's going to be some really good tight ends in the 3rd. Guys that might not be the most flashy catching the football, but do have some ability. But they could be that 6 offensive lineman. They're tall, they're big, and they've shown some stuff. I'll get into that another day. We need to improve these ancillary blockers. It's so big for us. When you run that play action, you get a guy who's big enough to chip and then go and be a real threat and also create real blocks for that run game. You'll get the bite and release at both your receivers and tight end, and it will slow down the rush on Tua. I still think the offensive line's the key, but I don't see that happening. But I do believe fixing these ancillary blockers, adjusting the philosophy, and the additions of some other things I'm going to get into now can get us to that point. This is a big, big season. So now I'm going to get into Fangio and Flo. It's got a nice little rhyme to it. So here's a Barry Jackson thing on Twitter or whatever it's called. Very little surprises me, but the level of fan obsession regarding Fangio and announcement does. If we were talking about Phins getting Micah Parsons or Chris Jones or Nick Bosa, I would get it and encourage it. LOL. But over an assistant coach, that's sure a lot of expended angst. I don't know where this comment comes from. It's almost like he tipped a couple too many back before he wrote this. And we all do it. I've done it. I'm not killing Barry. I like Barry Jackson. But this seems like...
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
I want to watch to see what he says when Fangio comes, if he starts raving about how awesome he is, how big a deal it is. Because if he does, that's a little curious. We're going to go through a little bit of stuff here. He's not an assistant coach. He's a coordinator of the main part of the defense, who you move the guy off you've been with for 4 years, who has head coaching experience with a rookie green head coach who struggled with discipline. Look at this. We were 29th worst, 6.6 penalties per game. 29th. Turnovers differential. We were 28th at minus 0.03. Fangio, with his schemes and secondary and blitzing and understanding, calling is huge. A coordinator is almost as valuable as a head coach. When you look at the difference between McDaniel and Patricia in New England, Fangio is elite or near elite, and he's got elite experience. If you could add the turnover differential and bring it to 15th and bring the Pens to 15th, we probably would have won a bunch of different games and we would have won past the wild card. It's insane for him to say that. It's almost like ridiculous, like he's trying to tamp it down, like they weren't sure he was coming here and he was trying to cover fire. I like Barry Jackson, but that's ridiculous. This is huge. Fangio is big, guys. This is totally ridiculous. Now, look at third down conversions on defense. 31st, 5.9. You don't think that's going to improve? You don't think that's going to win us some games? First downs completed per game. Miami, 24th, 12. You don't think that's going to go down and improve our season? Fourth quarter points, 6.4. We were 20th. So our defense was giving up 20th most points. All these things go down. We win more games. We maybe get your home game. We maybe win that playoff game. Fangio is huge. That's insane. Are you kidding me? Now, Flores got some heat. But I'm not here to get into that. He's going to be the defensive coordinator in Minnesota. It'll be very interesting for me to see that. I don't think the guy was perfect. I think there was a total media hit job on him. I like Flores. I think there were some things he could have improved on. I think he had mitigating factors with all things going around him. You might think that but clearly there was some level of bump in success from what we had to when he came here, and it was a bereavement of talent from the past regimes. This guy can coach. He certainly coached defense, and I think he can clearly coach as a head coach because he was getting interviews. Even after the lawsuit, multiple teams were asking him. Pittsburgh Steelers, who were the most functional franchise in the NFL, pulled him in right away and felt lucky. And he's probably, there's going to be a lot of coaching jobs open next year, and I bet you he's going to be on the list. Be very interesting to see what this happens. But some fans have never played football. And I have not played at a high level. I played at junior college. I know a little bit. No expert or, super vet. But I went to military school. I took martial arts. I did play my little stint up until junior college in football. There is a mindset of the warrior. And now, you're dealing with modern athletes who are warriors and millionaires. And so you can't be like the old Shula. Shula was nasty, guys. Shula was the greatest. He was nasty. He was hard. But they loved him, certain players. And I'm going to tie that into it. Flores was the same way. And maybe that's not his approach. He needs to soften. He needs to adjust. He was a rookie. under a lot of duress. And it's not to say I like McDaniel better or whatever, but we have discipline problems. And Flores had some success. Flores needs to go a little towards McDaniel. McDaniel needs to go a little towards Flores. The learning process of being a leader. Now, Joe Shad, as a part of a response on the Joe Rose Show regarding conversation with Tua, Mike Daniels said players have scars and need people to believe in them. That's the only business I'm in. And that was the whole push. Hi, I'm better than Flores. I'm a nice guy. Well, when Tua's getting beat up and we were getting penalties, and because some of those penalties put him in deep situations where he was under pressure. Did Tua have scars? Maybe. Maybe Flores was too hard on him. But you know what? There's certain players that like that style, that work with that style. And it's okay that you got coaches like Carroll. You got coaches like McDaniel. Carroll's a big-time coach, and he's the player-friendly coach. But then you got the quiet Dungies who could be really nasty and tough. You got the total maniacs like Belichick. And you even got guys like Shula, like I said. So there's all kind of styles. It's not to say, but there was, a continuing media hit job. And then Joe Shad, thanks to Mike McDaniel for his commitment to transparency and cooperation. It's great that look, I like that McDaniel's kind of funny. I like that he's kind of like a little bit of a nice guy. But if he's a nice guy and has success, that's what I want. I don't want the nice guy and no success. I don't want the nasty guy and no success. I want the coach to bring the Miami Dolphins success because I'm tired of hearing this song, as I mentioned. Now, you'll say, oh, you don't like McDaniel. No. Look, Sean Payton, what he said. This is Sean Payton. He sucks, right? He sucks. Sean Payton made it clear today. It will be clear to the Broncos players what he wants. There's an element of discipline. There's an element of toughness and look, it's not for everyone. Every build and group of players needs a different kind of coach. There's certain elements that are uniform across the board. But the great news for McDaniel, and it goes back to my prior concept or little talk, how big Fangio is. Look, McDaniel's a nice guy. He's a guy you want to hang out with. I still would want to hang out with Flores, too, because I don't mind those people. I like straightforward warrior types. I also like the funny, normal people. I like all kinds of people. I like McDaniel. I don't want him to change in some regards, but there's things that need to change within that. Fangio gets to play the bad cop, and McDaniel could still be who he is. Fangio is huge. The linkage between good cop and bad cop is like timeless. Fangio gets to play the authoritarian. He gets to bring stuff in, while McDaniel can still be the positive, nice guy. You get the best of both worlds. This is great news for us, hopefully. So let's understand it's not just one way. Look at Javon Holland. Everybody loves Javon Holland. Kid's smart, comes from a great family, super talented. Flo was a part of the reason I got drafted, making my lifelong dream come true. I got nothing but love for him. So if one guy hates Flo and another guy loves him, and you just choose, I love him because this guy loved him, and this guy who hated him is a jerk, or the guy who hated him is awesome, and the guy who loved him is just saying that, or whatever, you're missing the point of what the reality is of being football players in a warlike sport with different personalities, different types of leadership. Neither one. Flo is not a bad guy, and McDaniel's not a bad guy. Peyton's not a bad guy. All these guys are trying their best from what they know and who they are to lead men to victory. Discipline is a key. It's not everything. You can look at plenty of hard-nosed coaches that people hated them and they never won. But discipline is the foundation, and I believe Fangio is going to help McDaniel with this in a big, big, big way. Now, last, Fangio needs linebackers. We're not going to draft one probably with the second and third. Maybe. I don't know. But I don't know if you're going to find the guy you want in the second and third. Usually it's very hard to find these like really elite middle linebackers that can cover, blitz, and run stop. So Tindall looks like he's going to be a key. And he said this, The NFL playbook is very different from college. Tindall told Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. And again, I like Barry Jackson. He brings us valuable information. But disagreement doesn't mean dislike. It took me a while to grasp it. I feel I'm in a good spot now. Even to this day, there's stuff that's confusing to me. Around midseason is when I started picking it up. So we have to understand this is a reality. The mental side of the game held him back. Doesn't mean he sucks, but it doesn't mean he's going to get it either. We're in a holding pattern to see what this guy's going to do. But he is a big, big piece. He's going to be a major piece to what this defense does. We need linebackers with the Fangio system. This kid's got all the athletic talent. And I believe that Fangio is going to be able to, because of his great understanding and teaching, get this kid in positions to have success. This is the year, though. If he does not succeed, it doesn't mean all pro or Pro Bowl. Just produce. I'll go through another date. The linebackers that were picked around him and in the draft that were picked later and had success. But he's not going to be, at this stage, the cerebral master. But if he works hard, that's all it takes. Work hard, dedication, and he can get his cerebral area up with those great physical talents and be the big piece we need. Now, the same thing was said with EZ. I was a rookie coming in, and college told me to learn one position and know routes for the one position that you're running. That's kind of what I was expecting. In the NFL, it's a whole different world. Essentially, he was on one side of the field. Now he has to learn all the positions. So I don't understand, and I do understand. From a team-building standpoint, I said last year was the mulligan. It just needed, we need to see the floor of the team. To me, 2023 season is the prime season with maybe 24. So I kind of understand Greer's picking two guys that of high talent that if they get it right in the cerebral side are going to be big plays for you and have them primed for this critical 2023 season. But on the same token, he does this a lot. It's Eichenberg's in his third year. Jackson is in his fourth year. Noah's in his fourth year. You can go down the list of guys that just, Charles Harris, you can go down the list of guys that take too long or never get it because the cerebral side just was so low to begin with. So this is a crapshoot in a roll. If EZ pans out, because he's a big boy who can block, and he can help you with that ancillary blocking, and obviously Tindall's a big deal, and if you focus on these two guys, you can take that second and third and get some key positions, tight end most notably, or offensive line, but I don't think that's happening. So in one way, I'm frustrated with him doing that.
That football clear to the moon!
But if they hit in 23, it's a tip of the cap. Eichenberg, Jackson, no, forget about it. I don't see that going anywhere. If it does, it's all a miracle. And then EZ and Tindall, these four guys, and obviously two is staying healthy, is going to make or break Chris Grier's resume. And all I want is my Dolphins to win. I'm tired of them making me cry. I'm getting too old. Can't cry in a grave, from what I'm told. I don't know. Wish you could watch football from the grave. That'd be interesting. But I don't think he can cry. So I just want to win. I just want to go even to a Super Bowl at this stage. I want to be successful for years on end and be excited about the potential. So Chris Grier's got to nail these picks. They're going to play out big. And we just got to hope that it all comes together in 23 because 24, it's going to get a little fishy because you're going to lack some picks this year. You got guys that are going to move it on like Sealer, who I got to talk about. Big decisions to be made there, guys. You only have so much money. Cap is flexible, but it is, it's got some value. There's some controls over it. 2023 is key, guys. So that's it.
Back away from the fat guy. There's a fat guy coming through. Better get out of his way.
Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.